That's it. That pretty well kind of tees up our lead in for the budget discussions, and I believe the sheriff is up first to discuss his request. I will say, as he's coming up, I appreciate them working with us as we went through this budget process. His requested budget is different than what we have recommended. I believe he's requested 19 personnel, an increase of 19 total, and he'll talk about that. What we recommended, going back to the numbers I've already provided you there, is a total of a $2.3 million increase from FY17. 1.6 million of that, of course, was committed at a prior action by this board, and we did not designate all of that money to what it would be for, depending on the board's decision, discretion. It would be up to the sheriff to tell us how that money would be allocated, personnel or otherwise. Appreciate it, Sheriff.
Sheriff, again, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to be here. And as Tony said, I think our differences came out to be around, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, around 750 to 800,000 was the difference between what I requested and what you submitted.
Jane, do you know?
Is that about right?
Is that about right?
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. Okay, if we can start the slides. Go ahead to the population slide. As you know, population's going up. Tony's already alluded to that. 2016, the estimated population, 167,000 people. That's almost a 5% increase in the last 2 years. And I'll start off by saying, first off, thank you for that 10%, because at this time last year, I don't think we had anybody on our application process being ready to be hired. Right now, I just talked to my HR director. We have 60 people on the list. We just hired some from FHP. We've got other agencies that are applying, officers from other agencies applying to us to be hired, because they know that this is a great place to work, and they know our county commission cares about us, and so they want to be here. So that's a great testimony to that 10% you guys gave us, and we appreciate it. The next slide, you'll see dispatch calls for service. When population goes up, obviously everything else does too. If you notice, we've got almost 12,000 more calls for service in 2015 to 16, and so far this year we're up to 74,121 as of June. So we're going to break that 2016. We're estimating we'll probably have 165 to 170,000 calls for service this year. So as I said, with population growth, everything goes up, including calls for service. And then the next slide, the agency arrests. 2015, we arrested 5,228, and in 2016, we arrested 5,829, a 601 person increase. And then from January to July of 2017, we're at 3,625. So we're on tap to break the 7,000 mark on arrests this year. And that's 11.5% increase from 15 to 16, so it'll be even more than that when we get to 2017. And arrest types, you see, drug arrests are the thing. And one of my positions I was asking for was 2 narcotics officers. Right now, our narcotics division, we have 5 detectives for a county with 167,000 people, and there's no way to be proactive with 4 people. When I had the unit back, I was the corporal over the unit back in the 90s, we had a sergeant, a corporal, and 10 investigators. And then the budget tanked, and we had to make cuts in certain areas, and that was one of the ones. Well, now with heroin and methamphetamine and just general marijuana arrests, everything's up 32%. And then on the next page, you'll see the increase in homicides, which obviously, I think most of those were domestic violence related. You can't prevent those. You can't, keep a husband from killing a wife. Unfortunately, I wish we could, but that's the majority of the homicides. And you see pretty much across the board, crime's up. And if you go to calls for service by priority types, this is a scary one. If you notice on the left, in-progress calls are up 19%. And in-progress calls can be anything from a shoplifting in progress to a store robbery in progress. Those are the dangerous ones. Those are the ones that put my officers in the most jeopardy, and it's up 19%. So that's an extra 4,881 in progress calls we had over a 1-year time period. a total of 25,192 in 2000, or 30,073 in 2016. And then I broke it down also by calls for service by district. All the districts are up. The biggest increase is in Milton, 14%, and the total calls for 2016 around 150,000. And then next, narcotics. As we discussed earlier, if you notice, the scariest part of this is the second line. Guns seized, up 325%. So the drug dealers are, I guess, better armed than they were back in the day. A lot of them are carrying guns. We're seizing a lot of guns. And this is, the top part is just the narcotics unit. This is just those 4 or 5 detectives that work narcotics that did all that. And then you go down to the bottom, total narcotics arrests by Santa Rosa County, and there's 808 in 2016. And as of June, we're almost on tap for a 1,200 drug arrest in 2017, which would put it up 50%. And then next, the types of call for service at school locations. The one you need to look at is police assists, which is up 18%. That's where officers actually had to respond to the schools for different kind of violations, whether it be a fight or anything, that they deemed that law enforcement should respond to. And then the next one, school resource issues. Back in 08, 09, we had 14 officers. Elementary schools, we had 2 DARE officers. All the middle schools had officers. And then, of course, in 09, 10, that went down to 5, to where they're just in the high schools. I asked for 2 positions for school resource. I wanted to put them at King Middle and Holly Navarre Middle. The calls for service, and you see 57 and 97, and you're thinking during a school year that's not that much. But some of them involve weapons, some of them involve other things. So you have to remember, if you have a resource officer on campus, the response time obviously goes to almost 0, whereas you have to call an officer off the street to come to the school if there's not one working there. So the response time can be 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, depending on what the officer's doing when the call comes out. And another thing that resource officers do, and as a former resource officer in the middle schools, I can tell you, you catch them before they get their mind made up in high school about law enforcement. You get that positive impact on their life, and they know that every time they see a law enforcement officer, it's not bad. That's another thing that, you actually make better citizens, I believe, when you have resource officers in the schools. Now we go to detention. In our jail, we have 5 separate housing areas. And if you look down at the current jail overtime, projected total $911,500, that's enough to pay for the salary of 16 officers. But yet we're paying it in overtime right now because we're so short back in the jail. We currently have 17 deputies per shift, and each shift, just to cover the vacancies and cover all the pods, we need 23. So that's where that overtime's coming. If somebody calls in sick, we have nobody else. We have to call in somebody. We have no coverage. If somebody gets injured and they have to go to the hospital, we don't have coverage for that. And the jail capacity, max capacity is 682 inmates. And you'll see that number again here shortly. It's the total number of authorized beds minus medical and confinement, because we don't count that, because medical, obviously, you want to keep as many of those open as possible in case an inmate gets injured. We can put them in medical. We don't like housing them in medical for that reason. And the next one, dangerous incidents in the jail. If the real scary ones at the very bottom, 106 dangerous contraband incidents in 2015-16. In 2016-17, that went up to 276. And that's a 160% increase. And dangerous contraband incidents can be a lot of things. It can be where they file down a toothbrush or whatever to make it a stabbing object, anything like that. But that's a lot. 276 contraband seizures, that's pretty scary. And detention intakes, 2015-16, total number for the year was 9,239. So right now, as of June 17 for this year, we're over the 10,000 mark, almost 11,000. So, and we still have all of July to count for. All of August and September, and July and August are our busy months. That's when we get the most prisoners coming in. And then federal custody inmates. You see there, which generates revenue, so we definitely don't complain about it. It's, we have 388 for the last year. It's a 25% increase, which, you know, it is good to get the money, but also, you know, we have to deal with them. We have to deal with their medical issues. We have to deal with them fighting. We have to deal with their contraband issues. So we do make money off it, but it can be trouble for us at times as well. Average inmate population, back when we had Escambia and we averaged 100 a month with Escambia's females, we were at 633. 2016-17, without the inmates, 638 is what we're averaging. And I cannot tell you why that is, other than we're just arresting more people, and it's getting a lot busier. And then if you see down there, you remember that number from our current beds. Our current daily inmate population as of yesterday was 682. We're full. And also back with that 633 from Escambia, that was minus, we had 8 detention deputies from Escambia County that they sent over to take care of their people. So we don't have them anymore as well. Work release program, I've been getting some emails from some of you guys about, I guess there's some people concerned that we're closing it, but the reason we're closing it is it averages $136,500 in lost revenue a year, and I just can't sustain that. It's a great program. It gets guys out to where they work and everything, but the $136,000 we're losing a year, I just can't afford to keep it going. So that's why I've decided to stop the work release program. And I know from some of the emails I got, it makes it sound like I wanted to get rid of it. I don't. Anything that helps inmates to get out there, get a job, and not come back to my jail, I'm all for it. But it has to be financially responsible on my part. I can't justify, you know, losing $136,000, you know, every year on a program that's, you know, not making money for the county. And then the personnel request, jail staffing request, we initially wanted 8, and then Tony asked me to cut it down, so I talked to my jail major. We cut it down to 6, and that would get us up to 19 sworn detention deputies on a day shift and 18 on a night shift, and we have less on a night shift because less happens on a night shift. Most of them are sleeping, hopefully anyways. And then civilian staffing positions, we asked for 1 civilian in offender registration, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, 1 civilian in IT, and 1 civilian call taker. The offender registration position, we have 1 person. She's responsible for all the registration of all sex offenders, predators, career offenders, criminal registrants, and juvenile arrestees. So she's the only one. So when she's out sick or she has to take a vacation or something like that, stuff backs up because ACR has to handle it, and they're busy enough taking in prisoners. It takes about 30 minutes to register a sex offender, and during that time she's also answering phones, she's doing some other stuff, so it gets pretty busy back there. And especially when you look at in 2016, there were 346 registrations, and so far in 2017 there's 379. So it's going up exponentially. And she's working a lot, and she needs a little bit of relief. And as you can see down at the bottom, she averages 23 phone calls a day. That's intermixed with her register and the sex offenders. And IT, the IT position, our IT position provides support for 500 systems and 450 end users across multiple agencies. Approximately 200 are mobile, the MCTs in the cars, and they need 24/7 support. If something goes down at 2 in the morning, we have to call them out. And daytime operations, we have 2 technicians and 2 technicians for mobile and 2 technicians for the regular. And then at night and weekend, we're supported by 2 technicians, and that's for patrol dispatch and the jail. So that's a lot of computers to take care of. And the call taker position, we average 146 calls per day per call taker. And you say in an 8-hour period, that doesn't sound like a whole bunch, but they're also entering all that information. When they get a phone call, they're typing in the information they're giving, and then they're sending it to the correct dispatcher to dispatch the call. So there's a lot more than just answering the phone with it. And they answer the 911 calls, and they enter everything into the computer. So right now, we currently have 2, and we want to go to 3. And then for law enforcement, I originally asked for 8 deputy sheriffs. We cut it to 6. The 2 narcotics officers and 2 school resource officers, those I just feel we need to start we need to start staffing those positions. And I know we have 8 middle schools, and these 2 seem like a drop in the bucket, but we've got to start somewhere. And I talked to Mr. Rosdick. He said he can't, financially he cannot support us at all right now. He pays for our high school resource officers. He pays their salary 9 months a year, and then we pay it 3 months a year during the summer. He said he cannot do that for any more positions, so this would be totally funded by the sheriff's office if y'all could see your way to give us the money for that. And the narcotics officers, as we've already talked about, they're definitely overworked and understaffed. So, all right, last one. Right now, we're on tap to give you, and I think this is a conservative estimate, $500,000 back this year, according to my CFO. If things keep going on the same, I guess, even keel that it's going on, knock wood, you should get at least $500,000 back from us this year. And I'm trying to be as financially responsible as I can, which obviously that leaves more money at the end of the year for me to give back to you guys, because we do appreciate the raise. And I know I'm putting you in a predicament asking for these positions. I know it's a hard thing to come up with money, especially with what's looming on the horizon. But I can tell you this, I've never seen crime like it is now, and it scares me. And I've been in this business 35 years, and it's getting worse. And I would love to have a proactive rather than reactive agency. But right now, that's just not the way it is. And if we don't get our staffing up, I don't know where we're going to be heading. And I can tell you that 10% raise, now we actually have people to choose from, which is a great thing. Wendell Hall didn't ask for any positions last year, and I asked him why not. He said, well, let's say they gave us 8 positions. There's nobody to hire. So your 10% you gave us has created a surplus for us to choose from. And I don't think we've ever had that since I've been here. So thank you very much for your time. Do you have any questions for me before I sit down?